One of the most misunderstood terms in the entire VA disability system is the word static. If you spent any time talking with other veterans, you've probably heard somebody say, "My conditions are static," or "all my ratings are static." Maybe you even heard somebody claim that once a condition is static, the VA can never touch it again. That's usually where the confusion starts, because a static disability absolutely means something important, but it doesn't mean what a lot of veterans think it means. The reason I wanted to make this video is because I see veterans falling into one of two camps. The first camp hears the word static and they immediately relax. They're like, all right, we're good. They assume the condition is completely protected forever and they never have to think about it again. The second camp hears different information from different people and becomes worried that the VA is constantly looking for reasons to review or reduce their ratings. Neither of those approaches is particularly helpful. What helps is understanding the term and what it actually means and where it fits into the larger VA system. Before we get started, just a quick reminder, this channel provides benefits education only. I am not an attorney, I'm not a claims agent, a VSO, or a VA rep. I'm not telling you what to file, I'm not guaranteeing you any outcomes. My goal is simply to help veterans better understand how the VA system works so they can make informed decisions based on facts instead of assumptions and emotions. So the simplest way to understand a static disability is this. The VA generally does not expect that condition to improve enough to require routine future examinations. That's really the heart of the entire conversation. Notice I said routine future examinations. That's the key. A static condition is generally considered stable enough that the VA does not see a need to schedule regular future exams just to check whether the condition improved. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember that part, okay? The problem is that many veterans hear the word static and mentally translate it into something completely different. They hear static, they think permanent. They hear permanent and they think protected. Then they hear protected and they think untouchable. Before long, one word is turned into 3 or 4 different concepts that all mean different things. That's why when I'm speaking with other vets, I always tell them to read your records. Not the rumors, not the bullcrap. A lot of confusion in the VA world comes from veterans repeating the things that they heard from another veteran who heard it from somebody else, which I know is a catch-22 with this. The regulations that are most often related to this discussion is 38 CFR. You don't need to memorize the number. What's important is understanding the concept. 38 CFR discusses re-examinations and when the VA may schedule them. It also discusses situations where routine future examinations are generally not necessary. One of those situations is when a disability is considered static. That's where the term comes from. In practical terms, the VA is saying they don't expect meaningful improvement that would justify them scheduling regular future exams. Now, here's where a lot of veterans get tripped up. A static condition is not the same thing as permanent and total. Those are different conversations. Static generally applies to an individual condition. You might have one condition that's static and another condition that's not. Permanent and total is looking at the overall disability picture. That's why you can have static conditions without being permanent and total. And you can be permanent and total while still needing to understand that the statuses of those individual conditions are related topics. but they're not interchangeable terms. Static is also not the same thing as the protection rules veterans hear about: the 5-year rule, the 10-year rule, the 20-year rule. Those are all separate concepts. Those rules generally involve protections that develop over time. Static is primarily about routine future examinations. When veterans start mixing those terms together, confusion, well, it comes running along. One of the easiest ways to stay grounded is to remember that every VA term has its own lane. Static means one thing. Permanent and total means something else. Rating protections means something completely different. Understanding the difference will help you avoid a lot of unnecessary stress. Another common question I hear is whether a static condition can ever be reviewed. My careful answer is yes. Certain reviews can still occur under certain circumstances. Remember, static generally means the VA is not planning routine future examinations because they don't expect the condition to improve enough to justify them. That's different from saying the condition can never be looked at again under any circumstances. That's not the same statement. One is about routine exams. The other is about every possible situation that could arise during the life of a claim. That's why I encourage you, avoid absolute statements whenever possible. It's also why I tell a lot of veterans not to ignore official correspondence from the VA. Occasionally I hear a veteran say something like, my conditions are static, so I don't need to worry about that. I'll worry about that later. I'm not worried about that later. That's not a mindset I recommend. If the VA sends you something, read it, understand it. If you don't understand it, ask questions. Static statuses can never be an excuse to ignore information coming from the VA. Stay informed. It's always the better approach. So where do you find the information about whether a condition is static? Sometimes your decision letters may provide clues. You can see language discussing future exams or language indicating that no future exams are scheduled. Some veterans discover static information through their rating code sheet. Others find clues within their claims records. The bigger point, though, is that your records matter more than anything you hear online. Your situation is determined by your records, your conditions, your evidence, and your decisions. Not mine, not somebody else's. Not my experience, not anybody else's experience. Not social media. I also think it's important to understand why veterans care about static conditions in the first place. The answer is simple. Veterans want stability. Most people don't enjoy uncertainty. When a veteran learns that a condition is considered static, they can feel a sense of relief because it suggests that the VA is not expecting enough improvement to schedule a routine future exam. That's a reasonable reaction. Stability is generally a good thing. But the mistake happens when stability gets confused with invincibility. They're not the same thing. If you've watched some of my other videos, you've probably noticed a recurring theme. I always encourage you to understand the system rather than rely on assumptions. This topic's no different. Don't assume that static means something it doesn't. Don't assume somebody else's situation applies to yours. Don't assume a single word tells you an entire story. Instead, go understand what the term actually means and understand how it fits into your overall disability picture. If I could leave you with one takeaway from today's video, it would be that static usually means stability, not invincibility. The VA generally doesn't expect the condition to improve enough to take a look at later. That's meaningful, it's valuable, it's great information. But it's important to understand exactly what the term means and don't expand it into something it was never intended to mean. The more you understand your records and the language the VA uses, the easier it becomes to navigate the system with confidence instead of getting confused by it. Read the records, not the rumors. Understand before you act. And remember, clarity beats assumptions every single time. Thanks for watching. Hey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate everybody that's made it this far in the video. Please take the time to like, share, and subscribe. Add some comments below. That just helps me get the word out to more and more veterans, helps me reach more and more people that potentially need to see this information. I hope you take care of one another. We'll see you next time.